I was in the HR department picking up paperwork when I heard my name through a conference room door that was slightly ajar. I froze. My boss, Sharon's voice said, "We fire Guadalupe tomorrow. Claim performance issues. Legal already drafted the documentation." Another voice, the VP Craig, responded, "Perfect. She'll never see it coming." My heart stopped. I was supposed to be in that meeting in 15 minutes. They moved it up. I backed away silently, mind racing. I had maybe 20 minutes before they realized I overheard. 20 minutes to save my career. My legs felt like they might give out beneath me, but I forced myself to keep moving. I pressed my back against the wall in the hallway, just out of sight from that conference room door, and tried to steady my breathing. This could not be happening. Not to me. Not after 6 years of 70-hour weeks, skipped vacations, and campaigns that consistently exceeded projections. But as I stood there, Sharon's voice drifted through that crack in the door again, and what I heard next made my blood run cold. "The failed campaign documentation is already updated," Sharon said. Her tone was casual, like she was discussing lunch plans. "Every email chain now shows Guadalupe made the call to shift the budget allocation. The client reports have her signature on the strategy that tanked." A third voice joined in. I recognized it as Linda from legal. "We've been careful. The digital trail is clean. She'll have no way to prove otherwise." Craig laughed. Actually laughed. "By noon tomorrow, she'll be escorted out with a box of her desk items and a severance package she'll be lucky to get. The performance improvement plan we put her on last month sets the perfect foundation." Performance improvement plan? I had never been put on any such plan. My last 3 reviews had been exemplary. I felt dizzy. They were not just firing me, they were framing me for Sharon's failure. 6 months ago, Sharon had pushed for an aggressive marketing campaign, despite my warnings that the target demographic research was incomplete. I had documented my concerns in emails, in meeting notes, in a formal memo. When the campaign failed spectacularly and cost the company nearly $2 million, I thought I was safe because I had covered myself professionally. I had done everything right. Apparently, I had done everything wrong by assuming documentation mattered. I realized with horror that they were not just planning to fire me. They were planning to make me unemployable. In marketing, your reputation is everything. If word got out that I had cost a company $2 million through incompetence, I would never work in this industry again. At 32 years old, I would have to start over in a completely different field, and I had student loans that would not wait for a career change. My phone was in my hand before I consciously decided to grab it. I pulled up my personal cloud storage and started scrolling through folders with shaking fingers. I had always been meticulous about keeping copies of important work documents. It was a habit my father, a retired attorney, had drilled into me. "Cover yourself, Mija," he used to say. In business, memory is selective, but documentation is forever. Thank God I had listened. I found the folder, labeled Campaign Concerns Spring 2024, and opened it. There they were, 23 emails where I had explicitly warned Sharon about the flawed strategy. Meeting minutes where I had voiced objections. The original strategy document with my notes in the margins, dated 2 weeks before Sharon submitted her version. But then I paused. If they had access to the company's servers, they could have altered those too. I needed to check. I needed to verify that my backup files were still intact and matched what I remembered. I heard chairs scraping in the conference room. The meeting was wrapping up. I had minutes, maybe seconds, before someone walked out and saw me standing there like an idiot in the hallway. I moved. Fast. The back exit from HR led to a service corridor that maintenance used. I had discovered it one late night when I was working and needed to find a bathroom on a floor where the main hallways were being cleaned. The corridor was dimly lit and smelled like industrial cleaner, but it would get me to the main elevator bank without passing that conference room. My heels clicked too loudly on the concrete floor. I stopped, bent down and slipped them off, carrying them as I ran in stockinged feet. The service corridor seemed endless, but finally I reached the door that opened near the elevators. I cracked it open and peered out. Empty. I slipped through and jabbed the elevator button. The elevator took forever. I could hear voices approaching from the direction of HR. I stabbed the button again, uselessly, knowing it would not make the elevator arrive faster, but unable to stop myself. The doors finally opened. I threw myself inside and hit the button for the third floor where my desk was located. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Sharon and Craig turning the corner into the hallway. They had not seen me. Not yet. When I reached my floor, I forced myself to walk normally. Several coworkers were at their desks. I smiled and waved like nothing was wrong. My heart was trying to break through my ribcage. I sat down at my desk and woke up my computer. The screen flickered to life. I grabbed a USB drive from my drawer and plugged it in, then started copying files. The critical emails, the strategy documents, the budget projections. Everything that proved Sharon had ignored my warnings and pushed forward with a doomed campaign. The files were transferring when a pop-up appeared on my screen. System update in progress. Your computer will restart in 2 minutes. No. 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 I had not initiated any system update. I checked the corner of my screen. IT remote access was active. Someone was in my computer right now. They were locking me out early. I watched the progress bar on my file transfer. 60%, 70%. The 2-minute warning countdown had started. 1 minute 45 seconds. Come on, I whispered. 85%. 1 minute 20 seconds. Across the office, I saw my desk phone light up with an incoming call. I did not answer it. My computer screen flickered. 98%. 40 seconds. The transfer completed. I yanked the USB drive out and shoved it in my pocket just as my computer screen went black. The restart initiated, but I knew it would not come back on for me. They had locked me out. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked toward the exit. I did not run. Running would draw attention. I kept my breathing steady and my face calm, even though inside I was screaming. I made it to the parking garage and sat in my car for a full 5 minutes before my hands stopped shaking enough to put the key in the ignition. I drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away and ordered a tea I did not drink. Then I pulled out my laptop and transferred the files from the USB drive to check them. I opened the first email. It was from me to Sharon, dated March 14th. Sharon, I have serious concerns about the demographic targeting for the spring campaign. Our research shows. But that was not what I had written. I pulled up my phone and found the same email in my sent folder on my personal email account, where I always BCC'd myself on important correspondence. The original read, Sharon, the demographic targeting for the spring campaign is solid. I recommend we move forward aggressively with the budget allocation as discussed. They had changed it. They had gone into the company servers and altered my own emails to say the opposite of what I had actually written. I opened document after document. Every single one had been modified. My warnings had been turned into approvals. My objections had been erased. My careful documentation had been weaponized against me. The USB drive held the falsified versions, not the originals, because I had copied them from company servers, where everything had already been altered. My cloud backup was synced to those same servers. I had no proof. None at all. I put my head down on the coffee shop table and tried not to cry. That night, I called Patricia. She had been my mentor when I first started in marketing 8 years ago, and now she worked at the corporate ethics hotline at our parent company's headquarters. If anyone could help me, it was her. Guadalupe? Her voice was warm when she answered. It's been too long. How are you? Patricia, I'm in trouble. I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the falsified documents, the systematic setup. She was quiet for a long moment. Do you have any of the original documents? Anything that shows what they did? No. They altered everything on the servers before I could get real copies. That's going to be a problem. She sighed. Without evidence, it's your word against theirs, and their senior leadership. But send me what you have. I'll see what I can do from my end. I sent her the files, even though I knew they proved nothing except that I looked guilty. She called me back 20 minutes later. Her tone had changed. Careful. Distant. Guadalupe, these documents show that you made critical errors on the campaign. Why would you send these to me? What? No, Patricia. Those are the altered versions. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I understand you're upset about being fired, but making false accusations isn't going to help your case. I'm not making false accusations. They changed the files. Do you have any proof they changed them? I closed my eyes. No. Then I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do. I'd suggest you speak with an attorney about your options. She hung up, just like that. 8 years of mentorship, gone. I sat on my couch in my apartment and stared at the wall. I had gone from employed to unemployed, from documented to exposed, from having evidence to having nothing, all in the space of 8 hours. And tomorrow they would formally fire me, and I would have no choice but to accept it. I did not sleep that night. The morning arrived too quickly. I sat at my kitchen table, drinking coffee I could not taste, trying to figure out my next move. I had called in sick, buying myself maybe one more day before they made the termination official. But a day to do what? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer it, but something made me pick up. Guadalupe? This is Jake Brennan from IT. I knew Jake, though not well. He was one of those quiet tech guys who fixed computer problems and occasionally showed up to meetings to discuss security protocols. We had maybe exchanged 10 words in 6 years. Jake. Hi. I heard about what's happening. His voice was low, like he was trying not to be overheard. Look, I probably shouldn't be calling, but I saw some things in the system logs that didn't look right. Document modifications, timestamp changes, that kind of thing. I think someone's been messing with your files. My heart started racing. Can you prove it? Maybe. The system keeps hidden version histories. Most people don't know about them, but they're there. Every time a document gets modified, the old version gets stored in a secure partition. It's supposed to be for disaster recovery, but it means the original versions of your files should still exist. Can you access them? Not from inside the building. Too many eyes on the network during business hours. But I could do it remotely tonight if you meet me. I'll copy everything to a secure drive. Then you'll have proof. I wanted to cry with relief. Jake, why are you helping me? He was quiet for a moment. Because they did the same thing to my sister 3 years ago. Different company, same tactic. She never recovered. Lost everything. If I can help you avoid that, I want to. We agreed to meet at 10 that night in the office parking garage. He said it would be safer than meeting in public, and he could access the building's secure network more easily from there. I spent the day researching employment attorneys. Patricia's suggestion to get a lawyer was probably the only useful thing she had said. I found a firm that specialized in wrongful termination and made an appointment for the next morning. At 9:30 that night, I drove to the office. The parking garage was mostly empty, just a few cars belonging to people working late. I parked on the 3rd level like Jake had instructed and waited. 10 o'clock came and went. Then 10:15. 10:30. I texted Jake. No response. At 10:45, the garage's security lights suddenly blazed to life, flooding the area with harsh white light. I squinted against the glare and saw 2 security guards walking toward my car. Behind them were Sharon and Craig. My stomach dropped. I got out of the car slowly, hands visible. What's going on? Sharon smiled. It was not a nice smile. We could ask you the same thing, Guadalupe. What are you doing here after hours? I'm sitting in my car. That's not a crime. Breaking and entering is, though. Craig stepped forward. We have testimony from Jake Brennan that you coerced him into hacking our systems. He came to us this afternoon, very concerned about what you pressured him to do. What? No. Jake called me. He offered to help. That's not what he says. Sharon pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a text message thread, supposedly from my number to Jake's, where I was demanding he access confidential files and threatening to report him to management if he refused. I had never sent those messages. But there they were, complete with timestamps and my phone number. We also have security footage from last night, Craig said. You were in the building after hours, accessing files you weren't authorized to view. Jake has confirmed that he gave you his access credentials under duress. That's insane. I never asked him for anything. He called me. One of the security guards cleared his throat. Ma'am, we need to ask you to leave the premises. If you return, we'll have to involve the police. Involve them now, I said desperately. File charges. Let's get this in front of a judge where I can defend myself. Sharon's smile widened. Oh, we're not filing charges. Yet. Consider this a warning. But if you continue to harass our employees or attempt to access company property, we will pursue criminal charges. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. They were not going to file charges because charges meant discovery. It meant lawyers and depositions and questions they did not want to answer. But the threat of charges was enough to terrify me into silence. The security guards escorted me to my car and watched while I drove away. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over, because I was shaking too hard to drive safely. Jake had been working with them the whole time. The phone call, the offer to help, the late-night meeting, all of it had been a setup to catch me in a compromising position. They now had evidence that I was trying to hack company systems and harass employees. Every move I made to defend myself gave them more ammunition to destroy me. I drove home and barely made it inside before I collapsed on the floor and sobbed. The next morning, I dragged myself to the attorney's office I had found. Thomas Garrison was in his 50s, with gray hair and a reassuring demeanor. His office was lined with law books and framed degrees. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is definitely actionable. Wrongful termination, defamation, possibly fraud. We can fight this. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. However, he continued, and my hope died. You need to know this is going to be expensive and time-consuming. We're talking months, maybe years, and the company will fight back hard. I don't care. I want to fight. He nodded. Let me do some preliminary research and I'll get back to you with a strategy. 2 days later, he called. His voice was strained. Guadalupe, we have a problem. The company filed a lawsuit this morning. Against you. What? They're suing you for breach of contract, theft of intellectual property, and corporate espionage. They claim you stole proprietary marketing strategies and were planning to sell them to competitors. They're seeking $2 million in damages. I could not breathe. That's insane. I never stole anything. I know, but this changes everything. This isn't just an employment dispute anymore. You need a criminal defense attorney, not me. And Guadalupe, I have to be honest. The retainer for a case like this could be $50,000 or more. Do you have that kind of money? I did not. I had maybe $10,000 in savings. I'm sorry, Thomas said. I wish I could help, but this is out of my scope. And I have to tell you, there's a conflict. My firm does work for your former company. I can't represent you even if you could afford it. He gave me the names of 3 criminal defense attorneys and wished me luck. I sat in my car outside his office and looked at the names. I called the first one. Their retainer was $75,000. The second wanted $60,000. The third agreed to meet with me for a consultation at least. Her name was Diana Frost, and her office was smaller than Thomas's, located in a converted house rather than a downtown high-rise. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. I told her everything. Again, I was getting tired of telling this story. Diana listened carefully, then opened her laptop. Let me look into this company. What did you say the name was? I told her. She typed for several minutes, her expression growing more troubled. Finally, she turned the laptop to face me. Look at this. It was a news article from 3 years ago. Former employee settles lawsuit with marketing firm. This is them? I asked. Yes. And this. She pulled up another article. And this. 3 articles. 3 different former employees, all sued by my company for various allegations of misconduct, all settled with undisclosed terms. This is a pattern, Diana said quietly. They've done this before, multiple times. They systematically eliminate employees they want gone by framing them, then suing them into silence. Can we prove that? If we can get those former employees to talk to us, maybe. But settlements usually include non-disclosure agreements. They'd be risking a lot by breaking them. Will you take my case? She studied me for a long moment. Yes. But I need to be honest about your chances. This is going to be brutal. And we're going to need those former employees to testify if we want to build a pattern of behavior case. Without them, it's just your word against a corporation with expensive lawyers. How do I find them? Leave that to me. I paid her what I could for the retainer, draining most of my savings. She promised to start investigating immediately. A week later, Diana called me with a name and number. Courtney Walsh, one of the former employees. I called Courtney 3 times before she answered. When she finally picked up, her voice was wary. Who is this? My name is Guadalupe Martinez. I used to work at the same company you did. I think they're doing to me what they did to you. Silence. Please, I said. I just need to know what happened. I need to understand what I'm up against. I can't talk about this. Her voice was shaking. The NDA. I'm not asking you to break it. Just tell me if I'm right. They framed you and forced you out, didn't they? You don't understand what they're capable of. She was crying now. They didn't just fire me. They destroyed my life. I can't work in marketing anymore. I had to move to a different state and change my name just to get a job in retail. Do you understand? They erased me. That's what they're trying to do to me. Then run. Leave town. Change your name. Start over somewhere else. Because you can't win. I tried to fight. Look where it got me. Courtney, please. If we can prove they've done this to multiple people, we can stop them. You could help me save my career. You're not listening. Her voice went hard. You don't have a career to save. It's already gone. They've already made sure of that. Check your professional licenses. What? Just check. Then don't call me again. She hung up. With shaking hands, I pulled up the website for the American Marketing Association, where I held 2 professional certifications that had taken years to earn. I logged into my account. There, in red letters across my profile. Ethics complaint pending. Certifications under review. I clicked on the details. Someone had filed formal complaints alleging that I had engaged in fraud, misappropriation of client funds, and violation of professional standards. The complaints included supporting documentation. Falsified documentation, no doubt, but the association would not know that. The review process could take months. During that time, my certifications were suspended. Without them, most marketing firms would not even interview me. I checked the Professional Marketing Council. Another complaint. Another suspension. They had not just been working to get me fired. While I was focused on the lawsuit and the criminal charges, they had been systematically filing complaints with every professional organization I belonged to. They were not just destroying my job. They were destroying my entire career infrastructure. Even if I somehow won the lawsuit, I would have nothing left to win back to. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare. I applied for every job I could find, even positions that were below my experience level. Retail, food service, administrative assistant roles. Anything to pay my bills. Background checks revealed the lawsuit. Even the retail jobs turned me down. My credit cards were maxed out from legal fees. My savings were gone. I was 2 weeks away from not being able to pay rent. Diana was working hard. I knew she was, but progress was slow. She had managed to identify 2 other former employees besides Courtney, but neither would talk to us. The fear was too deep. Then, on a Thursday morning, a package arrived at Diana's office. She called me immediately. Guadalupe, you need to get down here right now. I drove to her office, afraid of what fresh disaster awaited me. Diana looked grim. She held up a hard drive. This arrived this morning by courier. No return address. It contains emails from your company account. Okay? Emails you supposedly sent to Jonathan Price, the marketing director at Axis Strategies. Axis Strategies was our biggest competitor. Diana pulled up the emails on her laptop. I read them with growing horror. They were from my company email address, sent over the past 4 months. In them, I discussed sharing proprietary campaign strategies, offering to provide client lists, and negotiating payment for confidential information. I never sent these, I whispered. The metadata says otherwise. They came from your computer, during work hours, from inside your company's network. Someone must have sent them from my account. Jake had remote access to everyone's computers. He could have done this. Can you prove that? I could not. Diana's expression was troubled. Guadalupe, I need to ask you directly. Did you send these emails? No. I swear to God, no. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I believe you. But proving it is going to be nearly impossible. This metadata is solid. Any expert witness they bring in will confirm these emails originated from your workstation. So what do we do? I don't know yet. Let me think. 2 days later, my bank called. There was a problem with my account. Could I come in? At the bank, a manager explained that my account had been flagged during a routine audit. There were 3 deposits over the past 2 months that looked suspicious. $5,000 each, deposited and then immediately withdrawn as cash. I never made those deposits, I said. They came from an offshore account, the manager said. We're required to report this to federal authorities as possible money laundering. This is a mistake. Someone must have made a mistake. But when they showed me the records, there it was. My account number, my name, 3 deposits of exactly $5,000 each on March 15th, April 12th, and May 3rd. Each was followed within hours by a cash withdrawal from an ATM near my apartment. I never withdrew this money. I never saw it. Check my balance. If I had $15,000, don't you think my account would show it? The manager looked at me with something like pity. Ma'am, the money was withdrawn. We have ATM footage. They showed me the footage. It was grainy and dark, but the person in the video could have been me. Similar height, similar build, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. That's not me. The card used had your PIN. My PIN that Jake could have accessed. My PIN that was probably stored in some company database that had been compromised. But I could not prove that. Diana looked at the bank records and the ATM footage with a deepening frown. This is sophisticated. Someone set up a mirror account with routing numbers very close to yours. They deposited money there, then withdrew it, but manipulated the records to make it look like it came from your account. Can we prove that? Not easily. The bank's records show it as your account. We'd need a forensic accountant and access to interbank transfer protocols. That costs money we don't have. So everyone thinks I took bribes from a competitor. It looks that way, yes. That night, I was sitting in my apartment, staring at the eviction notice that had arrived that afternoon when I heard breaking sounds. Someone was trying to get in my back door. I grabbed my phone and called 911, then hid in my bedroom closet. The police arrived 12 minutes later. The intruder was gone. My laptop was missing from the kitchen table, but nothing else had been taken. Not my television, not my jewelry, nothing of obvious value. Just my laptop, which contained all my personal files about the case. The police officer taking my report seemed skeptical. You're involved in a lawsuit with your former employer? Yes. But what does that have to do with this? Just seems like an interesting coincidence. Nothing else taken. Just the computer with your case files on it. You think I'm making this up? He shrugged. I'm just saying it's convenient. File an insurance claim for the laptop if you want, but I wouldn't expect to see it again. After he left, I sat on my floor and tried not to scream. The next morning, Diana called. We have another problem. Sharon has filed for a restraining order against you. What? She claims you've been harassing her. Threatening messages, showing up at her home, following her. The hearing is tomorrow. I never did any of that. I haven't been anywhere near her. She has evidence. Text messages from your phone number. Photos of someone who looks like you near her house. A witness who says they saw you following her car. Diana, I don't even know where Sharon lives. I know. But the evidence exists, and we have to respond to it. The hearing was a disaster. Sharon's lawyer presented screenshots of threatening text messages supposedly from my number. Photos taken from her home security camera showing someone in a dark jacket and baseball cap standing across the street. A statement from her neighbor who claimed to have seen me multiple times. I had never sent those texts. I had never been to her neighborhood. But I had no alibi for the times in question. I lived alone. I had been home, but I could not prove it. The judge granted a temporary restraining order. I was required to stay at least 500 feet away from Sharon, her home, and the office building where she worked. If you violate this order, the judge said sternly, you will be arrested and jailed. Do you understand? I understood. I understood that the net was closing tighter. I understood that every move I made got used against me. I understood that staying still meant losing by default, but fighting meant giving them more ammunition. I was trapped. My unemployment benefits were denied because the company claimed I had been terminated for cause. My apartment complex served me with an eviction notice for non-payment of rent. My credit score plummeted. I was living on ramen noodles and whatever food my mother could sneak to me when she visited, because accepting help from my family meant admitting how badly I had failed. Diana was doing everything she could, but we were drowning. Every time we addressed one problem, two more appeared. The company's lawyers were relentless, filing motion after motion, burying us in paperwork and legal fees I could not afford. And then it got worse. The hard drive that had been sent to Diana's office, the one with the fake emails, was submitted as evidence in the lawsuit. But there was more on it than just the emails. There were financial records showing payments from Axis Strategies to an offshore account, and that account was linked back to me through a complex web of shell companies. Diana brought in a forensic accountant who confirmed what we already knew. The trail was fabricated, but it was expertly done. Whoever had set this up knew exactly what they were doing. "We need to find out who created these accounts," Diana said. "If we can trace it back to someone at your company, we can prove this is all fabricated." But tracing offshore accounts required resources we did not have. International law firms, banking experts, investigators. We would need hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was eating cereal for dinner and sleeping on my mother's couch because I had lost my apartment. I did not have hundreds of thousands of dollars. The court date for the lawsuit was set for 2 weeks away. Diana warned me that unless we found something concrete, we were going to lose. And losing meant a $2 million judgment against me that would follow me for the rest of my life. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I was watching my entire existence crumble, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. One night, desperate and out of options, I did something reckless. I created a fake profile on a freelancer forum where tech workers sometimes advertised their services. I posed as someone looking to hire a hacker for corporate espionage. I started asking around about jobs involving document manipulation and identity theft. It took 3 days, but eventually someone bit. A user with the handle Ghost Protocol sent me a message. "What kind of job are we talking about?" I described a hypothetical scenario very similar to what had been done to me. I said I was looking for someone with experience in this specific type of work. "I might know someone," Ghost Protocol replied. "But this kind of work doesn't come cheap." We arranged to meet in a public park. I told Diana what I was doing. She was horrified. "Guadalupe, this could be considered entrapment. And if you're wrong, you could be putting yourself in danger." "I'm already in danger. What do I have to lose?" "Everything," it turned out. I went to the park wearing a small recording device Diana had given me. It was not admissible in court, she had warned, but if I could get someone to confess, at least we would know who was behind this. Ghost Protocol turned out to be a young man in his 20s, nervous and fidgety. We sat on a bench near a playground and talked. I played my role carefully, pretending to be someone who wanted to hire him for a similar job. "The thing is," I said carefully, "I heard about a job like this that went down recently. Really clean work. Made someone look guilty of corporate espionage. I want that level of expertise." He nodded eagerly. "Yeah, I heard about that one too. Guy I know did it. Made 20 grand for like a week of work." My heart was pounding. Who was the client? Can't say. But it was a personal job, not corporate. Some dude wanted to ruin his ex-girlfriend's life. Paid good money to do it too. What was the ex-girlfriend's name? He laughed. "Come on, I'm not that stupid." I tried a different angle. "How did your friend pull it off? I need to know the technique." He started describing the process. Remote access to the target's computer. Creating fake email trails. Setting up shell corporations and bank accounts. All the things that had been done to me. I had him. This was my proof. Not direct proof, but enough to start pulling the thread. But then he stopped talking mid-sentence and looked at me closely. Really looked at me. "Wait a minute, you look familiar." He pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. Then his eyes went wide. "Holy shit, you're her. You're the ex-girlfriend." I froze. He stood up quickly. This is a setup. You're recording this, aren't you? He patted his own jacket. Yeah, well, so am I. And you know what? We're only 300 feet from an office building where some guy named Marcus works, the guy with the restraining order against you. I checked before I agreed to meet you. My blood went cold. How do you know about Marcus? Because he's the one who told me to be here, you idiot. He figured you might try something like this. This whole thing was a setup to get you to violate the restraining order. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Yeah, she's here. Send the cops. I ran. I should not have run. Running made me look guilty. But panic took over, and I ran. I heard sirens behind me before I made it 2 blocks. I spent that night in jail. Diana arrived in the morning, furious and exhausted. What were you thinking? I was thinking I needed proof. All you did was give them more ammunition. You violated the restraining order. That's contempt of court. The judge can throw you in jail for this. Marcus set me up. He knew I would try something. Of course he did. He's been 3 steps ahead of you this entire time. She rubbed her eyes. Your bail hearing is this afternoon. Your family is putting up their house to get you out. I wanted to die. My family was risking their home because I had been too stupid, too desperate. The bail hearing was humiliating. The judge was clearly disgusted with me. He granted bail but warned me that if I came within 1,000 feet of Marcus, Sharon, or any location related to the case, I would be remanded to custody immediately. My mother picked me up from the courthouse. She did not say anything on the drive home. She did not need to. Her disappointment was louder than any words. The trial was in 3 days. Diana met with me that evening at my mother's house. I'm going to be straight with you, she said. We're going to lose. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The restraining order violation killed any sympathy a jury might have had. And we have no defense beyond your word that you're being framed. So, what do I do? The company has offered a settlement. You sign an NDA, admit to no wrongdoing, but agree to drop any claims against them, and they'll drop the lawsuit. You'll still have the criminal charges to deal with, but that's better than a $2 million judgment. If I settle, Sharon and Craig and Marcus win. They get away with destroying my life. They've already destroyed your life. The settlement lets you walk away without owing millions of dollars. And it silences me, just like it silenced Courtney and the others. Diana did not argue. We both knew I was right. I need to think about it, I said. That night, I lay on my mother's couch and stared at the ceiling. Everything I had worked for was gone. My career, my apartment, my savings, my reputation, my dignity. All of it destroyed by people who saw me as nothing more than a convenient scapegoat and a target for revenge. I thought about Marcus, about how much he must have hated me to go this far, about how much pleasure he must be taking in watching me destroyed. I thought about settling, about signing the NDA and walking away, about starting over somewhere else, in a different field, with a different name. I thought about giving up. But somewhere in the darkest part of that long night, something changed. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was just the sheer unfairness of it all. I was not going to settle. I was going to fight. Even if I lost, I was going to fight. I just needed to figure out how. The next morning, I woke up with a terrible idea. It was risky, probably illegal, and almost certainly going to backfire. But I was out of options and out of time. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. I found what I was looking for on the 3rd page of search results, a deep web forum where people traded information about corporate fraud and whistleblower cases. It was the kind of place I would never have visited in my previous life, but my previous life was over. I created an anonymous account and posted a carefully worded question about tracing cryptocurrency payments. Within an hour, I had 3 responses with links to tools and services. I spent the entire day following digital breadcrumbs. The offshore account that supposedly paid me had received funds from a cryptocurrency wallet. That wallet had transactions going back 2 years. Most of them were small and innocuous, but 3 large transfers caught my attention. I used one of the services recommended on the forum to trace the wallet's origin. It required paying $50 in Bitcoin, which I scraped together by selling an old textbook collection. The service came back with a registration email address. The email address was masked, but the service showed me the pattern of usage. Whoever owned this wallet had also used it to purchase web hosting services, domain names, and various online tools. All under different names, but all with payment patterns that suggested the same person. One of the domain names was still active. I visited it. It was a personal website, barely maintained, for a freelance IT consultant. The consultant's name was Jake Brennan. I had known Jake was involved, but seeing the direct connection to the cryptocurrency wallet was different. This was proof. Maybe not courtroom proof, but proof that Jake had been paid to do this to me. But by whom? Who had paid Jake? I dug deeper into the wallet's transaction history. Jake's wallet had received payments from another wallet. That wallet had fewer transactions, and they were larger. Someone was paying Jake, and paying him well. I traced that second wallet. It took me 3 days of obsessive searching, using every free tool and service I could find. I barely slept. I barely ate. My mother brought me sandwiches that went cold on the desk next to me. Finally, I found it. The second wallet had been used to purchase something from a legitimate online store, something that required a shipping address. The shipping address was an apartment in the same city as my old office. I searched the address online and found property records. The apartment was leased to Marcus Vega, my ex-boyfriend. The man I had dated for 2 years before I caught him cheating and broke up with him. The man who had sworn he would make me regret leaving him. Everything clicked into place. This was not about my job. This was revenge. Marcus worked for Axis Strategies, our competitor. He had access to their internal communications. He had technical skills from his computer science degree, and he had a reason to want to destroy me. He had paid Jake to set up the fake emails, the false bank accounts, all of it. Then he had fed the evidence to Sharon and Craig, who were happy to use it because Sharon needed a scapegoat for her failed campaign. This was not corporate malfeasance. This was personal vendetta wrapped in corporate cover. I sat back in my chair, shaking. I had found the truth, but what could I do with it? I could not go to the police. I had gotten this information through questionable means, and I was already facing criminal charges. Going to them with cryptocurrency tracing I had done on the deep web would make me look more guilty, not less. I could not tell Diana. She would have to report my methods, and they were probably not legal. I could not confront Marcus. The restraining order meant I could not go anywhere near him. I had the truth, but the truth was useless. I spent that afternoon crying. Not quiet, dignified tears, but ugly, desperate sobs that left me gasping for air. My mother found me on the bathroom floor and just held me while I fell apart. "Mija," she said softly, "you can't keep doing this. It's destroying you." "They're destroying me, Mama, and they're going to win." "Then maybe you need to let them win. Walk away. Start over. You're young. You can build a new life. But it's not fair." "Life isn't fair, baby. Fighting doesn't change that." I knew she was right. The smart thing was to settle, sign the NDA, and disappear. Take what little pride I had left and rebuild somewhere else. But I could not do it. The thought of Marcus getting away with this, of Sharon and Craig facing no consequences, of the next person they decided to destroy having no one to warn them, it made me sick. That evening, Diana called. "The settlement offer expires tomorrow. After that, we go to trial. What do you want to do?" "I want to fight. Guadalupe, I know we're going to lose. I know it's stupid. But I can't give up. I can't let them win without at least trying." Diana was quiet for a long moment. "Okay, then let's try." The next day, I received an email that made my blood run cold. It was from Marcus, sent from a throwaway email address. "I know you figured it out," it read. "Doesn't matter. You can't prove anything, and even if you could, you'd have to break the law to do it. Checkmate, Guadalupe. You should have just loved me." He was right. I had no legal way to prove what he had done. And even if I found one, I was out of time and out of money. I was beaten. But I was not done. I had one stupid, desperate, probably illegal idea left, and I was angry enough to try it. I created another fake profile, this time on a freelance job site that Marcus was known to use. I posed as someone from a tech startup looking to hire a consultant for reputation management and competitive intelligence. I made the job posting lucrative enough to get attention, $30,000 for a month of work. The kind of money that would make even a cautious person take a second look. Marcus bit within 24 hours. We exchanged messages. I was careful to keep everything vague and professional. I said I had heard good things about his work through a mutual contact. I mentioned that our startup was dealing with a problematic former employee who was making accusations. Could he help us document her unreliability? Marcus was eager, too eager. He started telling me about other similar jobs he had done, how he had helped companies handle difficult terminations, how effective his methods were. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop to discuss the project in detail. Diana found out what I was planning and tried to stop me. This is insane. You're violating the restraining order again. You're trying to entrap him in a sting operation without authority. If this goes wrong, you're going to prison. If I do nothing, I'm going to lose everything anyway. Guadalupe, please, don't do this. But I was already past the point of listening to reason. I showed up at the coffee shop in a disguise. A wig, heavy makeup, glasses, clothes I would never normally wear. I looked different enough that Marcus would not immediately recognize me, or so I hoped. I got there early and set up my phone to record audio. Then I waited. Marcus arrived exactly on time. He looked good, I noticed bitterly. Confident, successful, no sign of the man who was systematically destroying someone's life for revenge. We shook hands. He sat down. I started asking him about his experience with reputation management. He was smooth, professional. He talked about methods for documenting employee misconduct, creating paper trails, using social media to shift public perception. I pushed a little harder. I said our former employee was claiming she had been framed. How would he handle that? Marcus smiled. People claim they're framed all the time. The trick is to get ahead of it. Build your case before they can build theirs. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late to defend themselves. You've done this before? Several times. It's about controlling the narrative. I leaned forward. Can you give me an example? I want to understand the strategy. And that's when Marcus made his mistake. Maybe it was ego. Maybe it was the joy of reliving his triumph. But he started talking about a job he had done recently. There was this woman, he said. Ex-girlfriend who thought she was too good for me, worked at a marketing firm. She needed to be taught a lesson. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he would hear it. What did you do? I had a contact at her company, someone in IT. Paid him to access her computer remotely, send some emails, create some documents. Made it look like she was stealing company secrets and selling them to competitors. Did it work? Perfectly. She's about to lose a lawsuit for $2 million. Her career is destroyed. She'll never work in marketing again. He leaned back, satisfied. That's what happens when you disrespect me. I had him. I had his confession on tape, every word. But then he paused. He looked at me more closely. Really looked at me. His expression changed. The confidence drained away, replaced by cold calculation. Take off the wig, Guadalupe. My breath caught. I said, take it off. I knew it was you the moment you walked in. Did you really think a cheap disguise would fool me? I did not move. Marcus smiled. It was a terrible smile. You're recording this, aren't you? Of course you are. This was a trap. Yes, I said. My voice was shaking but defiant. And I got you. I got your confession. You got nothing. You violated the restraining order by being here. You entrapped me into a conversation under false pretenses. That recording is worthless. No court would ever allow it. He pulled out his phone. But do you know what they will care about? The fact that you're currently within 200 feet of my workplace. I looked around. We were in a coffee shop I had chosen at random. Or so I had thought. This coffee shop is part of the building complex where I work, Marcus said pleasantly. I eat lunch here 3 times a week. You just violated a restraining order in spectacular fashion. My stomach dropped. You set this up. Of course I set this up. You're predictable, Guadalupe. You always have been. I knew you'd try something desperate, so I baited you into it. And now you've handed me everything I need. He was already dialing. Yes, police? I need to report a restraining order violation. I ran. Again. Like a coward, like a fugitive, I ran. But this time, there was nowhere to go. Security cameras had caught me entering the building. Marcus had recorded our entire conversation on his own device, proving I had approached him deliberately. I made it to my car and drove, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere I could think. But before I made it 3 blocks, police lights flashed behind me. I pulled over. An officer approached my window. Guadalupe Martinez? Yes. You're under arrest for violation of a restraining order. They handcuffed me right there on the street. People stared as they put me in the back of the police car. At the station, they processed me and put me in a holding cell. I sat on the metal bench and stared at the wall. I had lost. Completely, totally, irreversibly lost. Diana arrived hours later. Her expression said everything. The judge revoked your bail. You're being held in custody until the trial, which is in 2 days, by the way. I tried to get him to confess. I know. The prosecutor has the recording from Marcus's phone. You admitted you were trying to entrap him. Guadalupe, you've destroyed any chance you had. There was no chance. You said so yourself. There's a difference between a slim chance and no chance. You just turned this into no chance. She left. I did not blame her. I spent that night in a cell, facing the end of everything. The trial would happen. I would lose. I would face criminal charges, civil judgment, professional ruin, and probably prison time for violating the restraining order. Marcus had won, Sharon had won, Craig had won, and I had lost everything. This was the bottom, the absolute bottom. There was nowhere lower to fall. But sometimes, when you hit absolute bottom, unexpected things happen. The next morning a guard came to my cell. You have a visitor. I expected Diana, maybe my mother. Instead, it was Courtney Walsh, the former employee who had refused to help me. She sat across from me in the visiting room, looking nervous but determined. I saw the news about your arrest, she said without preamble. I can't let this happen to someone else. Courtney, I'm done. It's over. No, it's not. She pulled out a folder from her bag. I kept everything from my case. I told you I destroyed it, but I didn't. I couldn't. I kept it all, hoping someday I'd be brave enough to use it. She slid the folder across the table. Inside were documents, emails, photos, evidence of the company's pattern of framing employees, evidence that Sharon and Craig had done this before, evidence that the company had paid settlements to silence victims. This is proof, Courtney said. Proof that what they're doing to you isn't isolated. It's systematic. And there's something else. She pulled out another document. This is a statement from Jake Brennan. He came to me 2 months ago, guilty about what he had done to you. He was willing to confess, but he was scared. I convinced him to write everything down and give it to me. It's all here. How Marcus paid him, how Sharon and Craig used the false evidence, all of it. I could not breathe. Why now? Why didn't you give this to me before? Because I was scared. But watching what they've done to you, watching you fight even when you had no chance, it made me realize I couldn't stay silent anymore. If I didn't help you, I'd be complicit in this happening to the next person, and the next. I took the folder with shaking hands. This is enough. This is proof. There's more. I contacted the other victims. 2 of them are willing to testify. They're tired of hiding, too. Hope, that dangerous thing I had learned not to trust, flared in my chest. Thank you, I whispered. Courtney nodded. Stop thanking me and get this to your lawyer. I called Diana immediately. She came to the jail and took the folder. Her eyes widened as she read through it. This is solid. This is really solid. We can use this. At trial? The trial is tomorrow. I'll file an emergency motion to introduce new evidence. The judge might not allow it because it's so late, but we have to try. That evening, Diana worked through the night preparing new filings. The next morning, I was brought to court in handcuffs, wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. The courtroom was packed. Sharon and Craig sat on one side with their team of lawyers. Marcus was there too, smirking. Diana stood and addressed the judge. Your Honor, we have new evidence that substantially changes this case. We move to introduce it. The company's lead attorney objected strenuously. This is ambush tactics, Your Honor. The defense has had months to gather evidence. This evidence just became available, Diana countered. It includes testimony from other victims of the company's fraudulent practices and a confession from Jake Brennan, the IT specialist who helped fabricate evidence against my client. The judge frowned. Approached the bench. There was a long discussion I could not hear. Finally, the judge looked up. I'm going to allow it. But Miss Frost, this better be substantial. It is, Your Honor. Diana called Courtney as her first witness. Courtney described her own case, the pattern of behavior, the systematic framing. Then she called the two other former employees. Each told similar stories. The pattern was undeniable. Finally, Diana introduced Jake's written confession. It detailed everything. How Marcus had paid him $20,000. How he had accessed my computer remotely and sent emails from my account. How he had created false bank records and documents. How Sharon and Craig had known the evidence was fabricated but used it anyway because they needed a scapegoat. The company's lawyers tried to object, but the confession was backed up with financial records showing the payment from Marcus to Jake. We also have this, Diana said, and played the recording from my meeting with Marcus. Objection! The company's lawyer shouted. That recording was obtained illegally through entrapment in violation of a restraining order. The method of obtaining this recording may be questionable, Diana acknowledged, but the content is not. Marcus Vega confesses on tape to orchestrating this entire scheme. While this recording may not be admissible in criminal proceedings, it corroborates all the other evidence we've presented. The judge leaned back in his chair, studying the evidence. The courtroom was silent. I'm going to take a 30-minute recess to review these materials, he said. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. I sat at the defense table, hardly daring to hope. When the judge returned, his expression was grim. Having reviewed the evidence, I find that the plaintiff company engaged in fraudulent practices to terminate Miss Martinez. The evidence shows a pattern of similar conduct with other employees. I am dismissing the company's lawsuit with prejudice. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of criminal fraud. The courtroom erupted. Sharon's face went white. Craig looked like he might be sick. But the judge was not done. As for Miss Martinez's violation of the restraining order, while her actions were unquestionably wrong, they appear to have been a desperate attempt to expose serious criminal conduct. Given that the underlying restraining order was obtained through false evidence, I am vacating it and dismissing the violation charges. Miss Martinez, you are free to go. I could not process what was happening. Diana grabbed my arm, beaming. You won. Guadalupe, you won. Over the next weeks, everything unraveled for the people who had tried to destroy me. The FBI opened an investigation based on the evidence Diana had presented. Marcus was arrested and charged with identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Jake was charged as an accomplice but agreed to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. Sharon and Craig were fired. The company, facing multiple lawsuits from the former employees who had come forward, agreed to a massive settlement. They had to pay damages not just to me, but to Courtney and the others. My professional certifications were reinstated with apologies from the reviewing boards. My name was cleared. But more than that, the company implemented new policies. Independent oversight of terminations, mandatory ethics training, external audits of HR decisions, real change that would protect future employees. 3 months after the trial, I was offered my job back. At a higher salary, in a different division, reporting to new management. I accepted. 6 months after that, I sat in my new office, looking out at the city. I thought about everything that had happened, how close I had come to losing everything. How many times I had wanted to give up. I thought about Courtney, finding her courage, about the other victims, finally speaking up, about Diana, who had fought for me even when the case seemed hopeless. I had not won because I was smart or lucky. I had won because I had kept records, because I had refused to stay silent, and because other people had found the courage to stand with me. That evening I called my father. Remember when you used to tell me to document everything? He chuckled. You listened? I listened. And Dad, It saved my life. I had learned something important through all of this. The truth matters, documentation matters, fighting back matters, but most of all, you cannot do it alone. The system is designed to silence victims, to make us feel isolated and powerless. But when we stand together, when we refuse to be silenced, the system breaks. Marcus was convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Sharon and Craig faced their own legal consequences for their knowing participation in the fraud. I became an advocate for employee rights, working with Diana to create legal protections against this kind of retaliation. We drafted model legislation that several states adopted. We set up a nonprofit to help other victims of workplace fraud. My career was not just saved, it was transformed. I found purpose in fighting for people who were going through what I had gone through. 1 year after my trial, I received a call from a young woman who had been fired under suspicious circumstances. She had heard about my case and wanted to know if I could help. I smiled. "Tell me what happened." Because now I knew the truth. In a world where reality can be manipulated, where emails can be forged and bank records can be faked, the most powerful weapon is your own careful record of the truth. They can forge your present, but they cannot erase your past if you have protected it. And when you fight back, even when it seems hopeless, sometimes the truth finds allies you never expected. Sometimes the very people who were silenced before find their voices because you refused to stay quiet. My career was not saved by luck. It was saved by preparation I did not know I would need, by courage when I had nothing left to give, and by the voices of others who refused to stay silent anymore. I stand at my office window now, no longer afraid. I did not just survive. I helped change the system that tried to destroy me. And that, more than any salary or title, is the real victory. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt completely powerless? Where someone was manipulating the truth to destroy you? How did you fight back? Or maybe you are going through something like this right now. Please share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find the courage to keep fighting. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that even in our darkest moments we have more power than we think, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories of people who fought back against injustice and won. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who feels like giving up. Someone who needs to remember that they are not alone in their fight. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community where we lift each other up and remind each other that truth and courage still matter. Stay strong. Document everything. Never stop fighting. And remember, you are not alone.